What happens to your Bitcoin when you die? It's a question most people never ask. Not because they don't care about the answer, but because asking it out loud feels a bit morbid. So they put it off. And in doing so, they leave the people they care about with a problem that has no easy solution after the fact. This one is worth thinking through now, because the answer is not obvious, and getting it wrong means your Bitcoin disappears permanently. I'm Sats, and this is episode 2 of questions I was too embarrassed to ask. Let's keep it simple. Let me start with the uncomfortable truth that most Bitcoin content skips over entirely. If you die and nobody knows your seed phrase, your Bitcoin is gone. Not transferred to your family, not held by a company waiting to release it, not recoverable by any court order or government authority. Gone, permanently. Whatever you held becomes inaccessible forever. This is not a flaw in Bitcoin. It is a direct consequence of how self-custody works. The whole point of holding your own private keys is that nobody else can access your Bitcoin without them. That protection works both ways. It protects you from bad actors while you are alive, and it protects your Bitcoin from your own family after you are gone, unless you have made deliberate provision. This is genuinely different from every other asset you own. Your bank account has a beneficiary process, your pension has a designated recipient, your house goes through probate. Bitcoin held in self-custody has none of that infrastructure. It goes to whoever has the seed phrase. If nobody has it, nobody gets it. Now, before this feels overwhelming, here is the good news. This is a completely solvable problem. It just requires a small amount of deliberate planning now, rather than a large amount of grief and frustration for someone else later. Here is what actually needs to happen. Someone you trust needs to be able to access your seed phrase after you are gone. That is the core of the whole problem. Everything else is just the mechanics of how you arrange that safely. There are a few approaches people use, and each has trade-offs worth understanding. The simplest approach is a sealed letter or envelope. You write your seed phrase down, seal it in an envelope, and leave it with a trusted person, a solicitor, or in a safe deposit box with instructions that it should only be opened after your death. This works. It is low-tech and effective. The risk is that someone finds it before you intend them to, so where you store it and who has access matters. A more structured approach is including Bitcoin access instructions in your will or in a separate letter of wishes that accompanies your will. You do not write the seed phrase in the will itself because wills become public documents in many jurisdictions after probate, and a publicly accessible seed phrase is an invitation for theft. Instead, you reference a sealed document held separately, and your will instructs the executor to retrieve it. Some people use a multi-signature setup, which is a more advanced approach where multiple keys are required to access the Bitcoin. You might hold 2 keys and give a trusted family member one. Any 2 of the 3 are needed to move funds. This means a single key being found or lost doesn't compromise everything. It also means your family member cannot access your Bitcoin while you are alive without your cooperation. This is a more complex setup and probably not where most beginners need to start, but worth knowing it exists. Here is something worth being honest about. The people in your life probably don't know how Bitcoin works. Even if you leave them a seed phrase, they may not know what to do with it, or how to access the funds safely without making a mistake. This means the instructions you leave matter as much as the seed phrase itself. A practical solution is to write a simple one-page document alongside your seed phrase that explains what Bitcoin is, what the seed phrase does, where to find the hardware wallet, how to restore it using the seed phrase, and ideally the name of someone technical they can call for help if needed. Keep it in plain language. Assume the reader knows nothing about Bitcoin, because they probably don't. One more thing worth flagging. If your Bitcoin is on an exchange rather than in self-custody, the inheritance process is different. Exchanges are financial institutions and most have account closure and inheritance processes. Your next of kin would typically need to provide a death certificate and proof of identity to access the funds. The process varies by exchange and can take time, but it is a defined process with a human on the other end. That is one of the few scenarios where leaving Bitcoin on an exchange has a practical advantage over self-custody. For most people, the right approach is some combination of a hardware wallet for self-custody, a written seed phrase stored securely, a simple instruction document for whoever inherits it, and a reference to that document in your will or estate planning paperwork. None of this needs to be complicated. It needs to be done. So, here's what to take away from this. If you die without making provision for your seed phrase, your Bitcoin is gone permanently. No court order or company can recover it. The solution is straightforward. Someone you trust needs access to your seed phrase after you are gone. Store it securely, reference it in your estate planning, and leave clear instructions for whoever inherits it explaining what to do. Do not write your seed phrase in your will directly. Wills can become public documents, store it separately, and reference it. If your Bitcoin is on an exchange, there is typically an inheritance process. If it is in self-custody, there is only your seed phrase. This does not need to be complicated. It needs to be done before it becomes someone else's problem. If you haven't yet moved your Bitcoin off an exchange and into self-custody, the video on setting up a Ledger wallet walks through the whole process step by step. That is the foundation everything else in this conversation sits on. Watch that next. Stack smart. Stay curious. See you in the next stack.